I want to show you three polls that tell us just how concerned Australians are when it comes to the cost of living. Number one, 48% of people in Australia are financially struggling, according to the Essential poll. In the Resolve Political Monitor, 51% of people say it's going to get worse in the next 3 months. And according to the National Australia Bank, 36% of people right now, tonight, cannot pay their bills. Yet, just to remind us how out of touch the political class are, this was the news out of Canberra.
Federal MPs are set to receive their biggest pay rise in nearly a decade.
As many Australians battle to keep their heads above water with the high cost of living, the nation's politicians have been given their biggest pay rise in a decade. They have no say in it. It's decided by an independent review. But the timing could not be worse.
Oh, no, it's an independent decision, of course. You see, what a rort. The politicians used to have to approve their own pay rises, but because they copped too much whenever they made those decisions, because Australians go, OK, enough, you guys are paid enough, certainly for what you do compared to what physically people do all day, every day, the people who work 120 hours a week and a little less or even a little more, depending on how hard you work. The only way, of course, in small business, you get a pay rise is you have to get up earlier and you have to go to bed later. They get a pay rise because of an independent tribunal that we couldn't possibly do anything about, despite the fact that they have the power to pass laws that apparently the rest of us have to follow. Now, this is despite the fact, their biggest pay rise in a decade, that they've already been given extra staff. Now, remember this rort that we spoke about a few months ago, where the extra staff are, among other things, the Albanese government will spend $159 million over 4 years to give an extra MP, to give every MP an extra member of staff to cope with the increasing workloads of larger constituencies and the growing demands of social media. So they've already got more people helping them, but they need the biggest pay rise in 10 years to keep doing their job. To give you an idea, it's more than $20,000 extra for the Prime Minister. I'll make this nice and simple for everyone. Think about the positions: Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Treasurer, Opposition Leader, or, as Australians would put it, Albo's now on $586,000, almost $587,000. His deputy, I've got something on him tonight, $462,772. Grim Jim is taking in more than $400,000. The Speaker of the House, well, in exchange for always ruling in Labor's favour, he's got the best part of almost $400,000. In fact, he's getting a little less than Peter Dutton at $417,000. And you do nothing backbencher. The absolute deadwood of the political party or the wannabe prime ministers like the Teals get $225,000. Now, for everyone else in the Australian economy, there's only generally one way the boss will give you more money. It's a little word called productivity. Put simply, you have to do more with the hours that you have or the job that you have. Put simply, the harder you work, the more money that you will be able to get. But what exactly is the productivity component in the increase in pay for politicians? Well, of course, there's none. And just to rub the salt into the wounds, just to remind you about how the game is rigged for them, and our job is to shut up and pay taxes, vote every 3 years and hope that they're not lying when you know that they are. The Treasurer of Australia talked about a great need for Australia to do one thing, if only one thing, to improve its economy. And that would be that we have to lift productivity. Now, he doesn't have to, or his boss, or his deputy boss, or the person who wants his job, they didn't have to lift their productivity. But Grim Jim says if you want a pay rise, you have to work harder.
We need to take a much broader, more modern agenda when it comes to productivity, whether it be data and digital, the whole dynamism and resilience agenda, the workforce issues, particularly around skills, the care economy and services, and particularly when it comes to energy. There is more than one thing that matters when it comes to making our economy more productive.
You have to be more productive, but he doesn't have to be. Deputy Prime Minister gets to keep flying around in private jets to go and see the Matildas. I repeat, I have more on that in a moment or two's time. Prime Minister, $5 million worth of private jets. These people take the piss. And they do so because, OK, it'll be maybe a 2, 4, 6 hour agro news story. But it was amazing today, the number of media organisations that didn't even really focus on this, let alone prioritise this. Simultaneously, Australians having all the problems that we're having when it comes to cost of living. Our real wages are going backwards, meaning that a dollar that you have today is worth about what it was in 2012 rather than 2023. And it's not like every single member of the parliament deserves a pay rise. We learned today that in the 12 months since reporting was made official about these things, that there have been 28 allegations to the Australian Federal Police of misconduct involving both politicians, senior members of staff or other officials. Now, we don't know how many of the 28 are the members of parliament themselves, but you have to assume there's one or two. Maybe one of the people who got a pay rise today, pardon me, one of the people who got a pay rise today is one of the people that Labor staffers talked about when 55 staffers came forward to complain about the behaviour of their former bosses or colleagues. I wonder if somebody got a pay rise today and is now, if they're a backbencher, earning $225,000 or a couple $100,000 more, depending on whether they're a minister. He is a man, remember, this was Labor staffers talking about their old bosses. He is a man who punches the wall next to his female staffer's head, calling her ... when she passes on news he didn't want to hear. Did that bloke get a pay rise? He is a man who calls his female colleague a pig dog when she disagrees with him and says in front of her staff, that's why no one will ... you. Did that person get a pay rise today? He is a married man who plied a young woman with drinks until she had no idea what was happening. He promised others at the gathering that he would get her home safely, but before he put her in a cab, he had sex with her when she had no ability to consent. Did that person get a pay rise today? Again, we don't know who those particular people were because at the height of the Canberra Me Too movement, there was only one side of politics that had a price to pay. The other one pretends nothing to see here.